Hey everyone, it's John here from Hot Take Hockey, back with another video, and today's video is going to be my bracket challenge predictions. I customized it. I already made my video for the current standings. This one's actually going to be based on point percentage, and for the situation of the league being suspended and we don't know when it's going to come back, if they're going to have to go right into the playoffs if they don't have time, that going off of point percentage might be more fair. So a team that has a couple less games played, that if they were to play the rest of the games, they would finish ahead of the team that is ahead of them right now. And I think that's the case for a couple situations. I'll throw an example. The New York Islanders, who are behind the Blue Jackets right now, but 2 games in hand. So 2 games in hand, 1 point back, point percentage, the Islanders would be there. So that is the situation we're going to see here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section if you think that if they were going to go right into the playoffs, if they should go on point percentage, if they should go off of current standings, if they should change the format, if they should change the best of what series, 5, 3, 7, obviously not 3. I think that's a hot take to even change the series, and a situation where they're asking to see if they can go into late July. It's a tough situation, but this is the point percentage video. Look out for the current standings video, and we'll see what my predictions are from the first round all the way to the Stanley Cup winner. So if you are new, please subscribe, smash that like button, leave your predictions in the comment section below. A lot more hockey content to come, but right now, let's get into my predictions. All right, so this is the point percentage standings if it was to go into the playoffs right out of the suspension. So you got Boston Bruins, Islanders, Lightning, Leafs, Capitals, Hurricanes, Flyers, Penguins, then Blues, Flames, Avalanche, Stars, Golden Knights, Predators, Oilers, Canucks. So it's funny because, I mean, the Eastern Conference doesn't change a lot. The only matchup that changes is if it was current standings, it would be Bruins, Blue Jackets. Point percentage, it's Bruins, Islanders. Western Conference changes a lot. The Blues play the Flames instead of the Predators. Avalanche still play the Stars, but then the whole other side changes. I mean, the Golden Knights play the Predators, and the Edmonton Oilers play the Canucks. So in this scenario, the Winnipeg Jets are not in. They're not in terms of point percentage. The Canucks would be in that scenario, and they would actually jump into the 3rd division spot of the Pacific Division and play their rivals, the Edmonton Oilers. So we wouldn't get a Battle of Alberta in the point percentage scenario here, but it's still a very good matchup between the Oilers and Canucks. Let's start off with the St. Louis Blues and the Calgary Flames. So both matchups are going to come up here. Blues, Flames, Avalanche, Stars, both results. I think for the Blues, it's going to be a really tough scenario to see them losing in the first round, and I think that's no shame against the Calgary Flames or their fans. I still don't have that confidence in the Flames. And you know what? I think the Flames could be actually one of those secret teams that do make some noise after last year having a lot of hype around them. But for now, I'm going to stay confident in the Blues, and they're going to play the Colorado Avalanche in the second round. I think the Avalanche, I'm going to talk about the same thing in my other video. The Avalanche, coming off of all the injuries, I do think they are going to play well coming out of the break if it does come to that point. And I mean, McKinnon, Rantanen, Kadri, Grubauer. So Avalanche versus Blues, I see either way. I see that being the scenario for current standings or point percentage. Now down low, the Vegas Golden Knights or the Predators, and then the Edmonton Oilers or the Canucks to go to the second round. And honestly, hot take alert, I have the Nashville Predators beating the Vegas Golden Knights. I would have already posted my video on the current standings, point percentage video coming right now. I think the Predators match up against the Vegas Golden Knights really well. And I think the scenario for me is, if I'm looking at goaltending, yes, I would take Fleury over Saros or Rinne, but it's not that far off. One of Saros or Rinne could really get hot. We've seen Rinne very hot and cold in the playoffs. Maybe this year he's very hot. We don't know. But if I'm looking at matchups in terms of defense, and we've always talked about sometimes defense can really bring a team to playoffs and really bring a team to a Stanley Cup run. It doesn't always happen. I think goaltending, it actually goes up in terms of positions. I think goaltending is your most important. If you don't, and you're looking at all the teams in the playoffs here, if you have a bad goalie, it's very rare you make the playoffs, or if you do, you're not doing well. So I'm looking at the Preds as being a hot take here because I think they match up okay in terms of the forward group. I think a guy like Mikael Granlund, like you're seeing some of those smaller players, and Granlund's not a small player, but he did have his struggles. So I'm seeing more success from the Preds, and if they do get into the playoffs, or if it was to start right into the playoffs, I see them possibly making some noise depending on the matchup and depending on which team they play. If it's the Blues, maybe not. But if it's a team like the Vegas Golden Knights, I could see them maybe matching up. And that's no shade against the Golden Knights because they're a legit team too. And I could see them going far as well. But I'm taking the hot take because I did think the Preds were going far at the start of the year. So Preds versus the Oilers. So I think if they're talking about the Edmonton Oilers, the Vancouver Canucks have been so inconsistent. At least with the Edmonton Oilers, their consistency, yes, it comes from only 2 players, but it hasn't really taken a step back. So, yes, Leon Draisaitl, yes, Connor McDavid, yes, you've seen the success from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the recent success of Kelly Yamamoto, and then talking about the goaltending of Mike Smith, and yes, Koskinen's played pretty decent. So, you know what? I think the Canucks could get them to a 6 or 7 game series, but I would be confident in saying the Edmonton Oilers against the Preds. So that would be an interesting series. I think that would be one of the weaker series in the second round, but it could bring a lot of attention. And then you're talking about the Boston Bruins and Toronto Maple Leafs. Second round matchup. Yo, I'm pulling it out right away. I don't need to talk about the Islanders Bruins much. Islanders have been way inconsistent. Lightning Leafs, guys, I'm going with the hot take. You've already hopefully watched my current standings video. You know what? I think, and this is like just more in terms of the success the Leafs have had recently against the Lightning in the last couple of games. But I'm also just thinking that the Leafs have had this big thing in their head up against the Boston Bruins. If I'm going straight matchup right now, who I think is going to have a better success in the playoffs, I'm going Lightning. I'm going Lightning every day. But I have this thing in my head, and I have certain predictions sometimes, certain hot takes, certain mindsets, and I'm just thinking, you know what? I do think the Lightning have the better opportunity to win this series against the Leafs, but the Leafs have gotten hot in weird times, and they have this certain mindset. They've played well against the Lightning. They've figured things out. Who knows? I'm going to take the Leafs as the hot take here and play the Boston Bruins, and maybe that's all they need. We'll talk about it in a sec. Anyways, next up, Caps versus Hurricanes, Flyers versus Penguins. Same result. Same result as current standings, point percentage, Flyers, Capitals. I really don't think the Penguins, I can't see it. I mean, again, the Penguins kind of remind me of the Leafs of just being hot and cold this season. Super hot and cold. So you know what? Maybe they become, it's Crosby, it's Malkin. So they could get hot at the right time. And if you do get Gensel back with this hiatus, hopefully coming to an end, going to the playoffs. So I could see the Penguins getting hot, and in the past, we've seen the Penguins have better success against the Flyers, but I'm going to still go with the Flyers. You know how high I am on the Flyers against the Capitals. So Leafs, Bruins, Flyers, Capitals, Preds, Oilers, and Blues, Avalanche. So, hey, the Leafs get their opportunity against the Bruins in the second round. So does that change things? And then the Flyers, Capitals, you know what? I got the Leafs. Okay, hot take. It's a hot take channel. I just think if you're looking at the situation, again, it's confidence building. I've said it in the past, the Leafs and Bruins. Look at the confidence that it gave the Bruins last year when they beat the Leafs. That was their toughest series. I don't think anyone can argue that, other than the Stanley Cup final, obviously. But I'm talking about the 2 other matchups going ahead and looking at the Blue Jackets and looking at the Hurricanes. The Leafs gave the Bruins their toughest series out of the 3. I don't think there's even a question about that. So if they can beat the Lightning and get that confidence, I just think it takes the Leafs one round. I think they're that hot, and I think they're that team that's so hot and cold that they could do it. Again, if I'm looking at just straight matchup and the past success and all of that, I'm taking the Bruins. But I'm going with the hot take in terms of I've played the game and I've watched the game long enough to know that momentum is a huge driver in this league and all of sports. But I do think if the Leafs do get that confidence, and with certain players in this team, if they do get going, it could be hard to stop. And we all know the Leafs are top heavy, and they do have their issues. But then again, we've seen teams with issues before ride on a few players, and it do work. So we'll see. Leafs, Flyers. I do think the Flyers. I'm taking the Flyers in both scenarios over the Capitals. So Flyers, Leafs, I think that would be a very fun. I've always really enjoyed Flyers, Leafs. I think they're a really underrated matchup. Especially with the Flyers being younger, I think the youth in that series would be crazy. Other side, Blues, Avalanche, Predators, Oilers. I'm going to go straight to it. I think the Oilers could do it. Okay, this is my thing. If the Oilers, if Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, and I just talked about the Leafs, if Draisaitl and McDavid can get that hot, and we know they might have got chanced against Anaheim, I think they could win the second round. I think they could go into the Western Conference Final. Again, it would be playing the Avalanche. I think the Avalanche are like more of a juggernaut than the Predators. They're set up in a similar way in terms of that building defense, and just the way the offense is. Obviously, I think the Preds are more the Avalanche are more top heavy, where the Preds have the more depth. But in terms of built from the back end, I think they're very similar. So you know what? I could see the Preds going for a run, like I said, if they do get past that first round. But I'm going to take Oilers. I'm going to have that confidence in Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or both. Again, if it really comes down to the matchup, and I think that's for a few teams like the Preds, like the Oilers, like the Flames. So if the Oilers were to play a team like Vegas, or if the season did come back and the Oilers fell and they had to play a team like St. Louis, I think that's a little more tough, and I think you're getting to a scenario where it might not be done. But Oilers, Avalanche, Western Conference Final, Leafs, Flyers, Eastern Conference Final. Jeez, Leafs fans, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm a Leafer, but you know what? I think the thing is, I would obviously love to see the Leafs win a cup. I've been waiting for it my whole life, but I do think if the Flyers are riding hot and they play a team like the Leafs, and we've seen more consistency in the last few months from the Flyers, again, I think the Leafs and Flyers actually have similar issues in terms of, the Flyers, I think, have brought in their defense a little more together, but we still haven't seen a healthy Leafs team in a while. So that's also another question mark. But I'm going to take Flyers Oilers. I think that could be a crazy Stanley Cup final matchup. Again, I think this is a hot take as well, the Oilers beating the Avalanche, because I do have a lot of stock in the Avalanche, especially if they can get healthy going into the playoffs. But I'm going to take Oilers Flyers as my hot take. I do think, based on my other video, the Avalanche are one of my Stanley Cup favorites. I'm going to make a video on my updated Stanley Cup favorites. Oilers, Flyers, who do I got winning? Philadelphia Flyers. It was so hard on that fan base back in 2010. And I think if you're looking at the Blackhawks beating them, last 10 years has been rough. So 10 years later, and who knows? Maybe they could beat the Edmonton Oilers and win the Stanley Cup. Again, it comes down to McDavid, Draisaitl, guys. Honestly, in a 7-game series against the Flyers, I could see McDavid and Draisaitl carrying them. But it just takes 1 or 2 games for one of those players to be a little off. And the Flyers have way more depth. The Flyers are so much more of a complete team, it's not even funny. So I think if you're talking about goaltending, I would still take Carter Hart because of his consistency. Obviously, I think the experience, you go to Mike Smith, but I think Carter Hart, we see what Jordan Binnington could do. Again, Jordan Binnington obviously older. And then if you're talking about the defense, I think the Flyers defense is a little better, to be honest. And again, it's not too far off. And then the Flyers depth up front is like, yeah, it's night and day. You take Connor McDavid or Draisaitl out of that Oilers lineup, and I think the Flyers would dismantle them, to be honest. Again, I think the biggest thing is, like, a lot of people say Draisaitl on his own, again, the Hart situation he's put together, or McDavid on his own could still drive this team. But I don't know, because it comes down to, I think that's the biggest thing, is like the two-headed monster. Because if you take one out, then the team only has to focus on one. I think McDavid's a little more of a tougher task. Draisaitl's had the better season, so if both of them can put it together, they can go on a run. So I have the Flyers in this video winning the Stanley Cup. I said at the start of the year the Flyers were one of my favorites, and it was a huge hot take. I got a little bit of hate from it, but now Flyers fans and other fans are coming slowly to realize, hey, I wasn't so wrong. So some of my hot takes work out, some of them don't, but Philadelphia Flyers winning the Stanley Cup, a little bit of a hot take, maybe, but they're hot. The Blues were hot last year, and look where that got them. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you are new. Smash that like button. Leave your predictions in the comment section below. I will see them. I will reply to them, and I hope to see you on the channel more. So this was John from Hot Take Hockey. Hope to see you on the next video. Peace out.